You'd be okay. All right, being after 6:30, we'll call the meeting to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Gendron?
Here.
Mr. Gignac?
Here.
Mr. Hoey?
Here.
Mayor Kennedy?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Dakota?
Yeah.
Ms. Doherty? Here. 7 present.
Okay, thank you. The first order of business is acceptance of the minutes. The chair would entertain a motion to accept the minutes for approval of Monday, January 4th, 2016, and Wednesday, January 6th, 2016. We have a motion to accept and place on file, seconded by Mr. Gendron. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed? So voted. Next order of business would be, is permission to enter. And that's from January 20th, 2016. Could we hear from the superintendent on that?
Sorry, which one is that? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask Mr. Antonelli to present it. Mr.
Yes, I recommend to the school committee that they approve the following items for permission to enter. The first is the Christ Jubilee International Ministries for $9,500. The second is the Green Dragons, Inc. for $8,000. And the third and final one is for the City of Haverhill for $30,000.
Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Mr. Gignac, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, all opposed? So voted. Oh, roll call, I'm sorry. Roll call on that.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Next order of business is 3 memorials. We have a memorial for Dr. John J. Janis, retired high school football team physician, for Veseliki Bessie Samaras, mother of Lowell City Councilor and retired Lowell High School headmaster Bill Samaras, and Rita Bernia DeLiza, mother of Cheryl Cunningham, who's the Washington School principal. Could you just stand, please, for a moment of silence? The next order of business is unfinished business, the establishment of the Lowell High, the Lowell School Committee subcommittees for 2016 and 2017. I believe everybody got a copy of the subcommittee list yesterday morning. Is everybody okay with the subcommittees? All right, so a motion to approve and place on file by Mr. Dakota, seconded by Mr. Gendron. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed? So voted. Next order of business are the motions. The first motion is a motion by Connie Martin to request that the administration from Lowell High School and the student group Generation Citizen be invited to the next curriculum subcommittee to present on the current status of financial literacy instruction at the high school and to discuss opportunities for expansion. Second to the motion by Ms. Doherty. Discussion on the motion. Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This really comes out of an impromptu presentation that this group made at our meeting 2 weeks ago. I think they had brought up some significant issues that we want to talk about, particularly in terms of understanding what is being offered at the high school currently for financial literacy and financial education. So I'm hoping we can ask this group to come, be part of a conversation both with the administration and the curriculum subcommittee at our next scheduled meeting.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? All opposed?
Aye.
So voted. Next order of business is a motion by Ms. Martin as well, requesting that the superintendent develop a comprehensive planning strategy and timetable for crafting a district restructuring plan to accommodate increasing student population, transportation challenges, and equitable provision of all educational programming across the district. Seconded by Mr. Hoey. Ms. Martin?
Thank you once again. Again, this really comes out of conversations at our last meeting and a few other topics that have been coming up over the last few months. I think we've been nipping at the edges of what we see as a really burgeoning problem for our district in terms of the overall student population, how we're going to be able to do that with the current resources we have, with the current infrastructure that we have. So there are really going to be, I think, a great many issues that will come to bear in this, and I am making this motion in the hopes that we can do it in a more comprehensive, planned way, and be able to have the committee and have the community have a big picture view before we start making the smaller decisions to lay out our plan to accommodate what we know is going to be a huge issue for our district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Gendron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is a discussion we had at the last meeting with regard to the facilities, and Ms. Martin is expanding it here. But I really think it's important that we take a long-term view at that, and not just, what are we going to do next year, but what are we going to do for the next 5 years as our population increases, especially as it relates to the middle schools, because we know for a fact that we have an issue there that's going to pop up, significantly over the next few years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, all opposed? So voted. The chair would ask the vice chairman to take the podium, please.
Where's the gavel? I might need it. The chair recognizes Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This motion...
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I thought you were speaking on the last motion.
Oh, no.
So I've been informed that I need to read the motion and
Yes.
get it. So this is a motion by Mayor Kennedy requesting that the administration develop a STEM curriculum at Lowell High School. Is there a second on the motion by Ms. Martin? Now the chair recognizes Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an issue that has been important to me for some time. I think it's an issue that would have an effect on the entire community, a positive effect on the quality of life in the city. And what the motion proposes is that the superintendent move forward with developing a STEM curriculum at the high school that maybe would be, at least the way I envision it, as being a curriculum within the high school that would be similar to the Latin Lyceum. I think that when young families today look for where they want to live, what community they want to live in, one of the things they look at is what communities have a STEM program, have a STEM curriculum, and I think that we should have one. I've talked to the headmaster at Lowell High School and to the curriculum director at Lowell High School about this, and they've informed me that what Lowell High has is something called Pathways, which is very similar to STEM, and that's what they have to say about it. I think it's almost a marketing issue. Nobody really knows what Pathways is, but everybody knows what a STEM curriculum is. So if the Pathways curriculum is so close to a STEM curriculum, why not just call it a STEM curriculum, and if it needs to be modified, then modify it? I would point out as well that there are, that STEM curriculums are ranked by U.S. News and World Report. U.S. News and World Report, as everybody knows, ranks high schools and colleges, but they also rank STEM curriculums for high schools. And there are 15 high school districts, or school districts in Massachusetts that are ranked in the top 400 right now. One that comes to mind is Lexington, but there are others, and there are others in close proximity. So it would seem to me that if there is difficulty in developing the STEM curriculum, it would be wise and prudent to go and see what those communities have done and what their curriculum looks like and replicate it. But I do think that a STEM curriculum is important, and I think it just helps to make the high school a better place, and I think it makes the city of Lowell more attractive to young families who are looking to decide where they want to live.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any further discussion? Mr. Hoey?
Thanks, Vice Mayor. I would just like to say, I'm not too sure on the issue myself, but I would like to maybe have it sent to the high school subcommittee to have Brian Martin and his staff just give us a little bit more information on everything to see if they can do it. Other than that, that's all I have to say. I do support the motion. I think it's a great idea. I just don't have enough information on it. Thanks.
So is that a motion to
So
refer
I
to
would
the
like
Lowell
to
High
make a
School
motion
Subcommittee
to send it to the high school subcommittee.
for analysis?
Yeah.
Is there a second on that? By Mr. Gignac? We don't need a roll call on that. All in favor of
On the substitute motion?
Yes.
Please, Mr. Chairman, I would just point out that last year sometime, this motion was brought forward by the city council, sent over to the school committee, before you were on the school committee and before I was on the school committee. And I believe that the motion at that time was referred to the high school subcommittee then. And as I said earlier in my remarks, I've met with the headmaster at Lowell High School, and I've met with the curriculum director there. And they don't have any problem with developing a STEM curriculum. But what they do say is what they have is pretty close to it. All I'm saying is it's almost a marketing thing. Why are you calling them pathways, and why does the high school call them pathways if it's close to a STEM curriculum? It should be called a STEM curriculum. So I guess to send it to the high school subcommittee at this point is merely to delay action. This is something that maybe could be in place for September if we don't delay. But if we're going to delay and it's going to linger in the subcommittee for a month or 2 months, then we're going to be, the superintendent's going to be hard pressed to have it in place for September. So for that reason, I would have to be in opposition to the substitute motion.
Okay, can I speak one more time on that?
Sure, Mr. Hoey?
My problem with it is, all I want to hear is Brian and his staff tell me they can do it. And they feel like they have no problem with it, and I haven't heard that. That's all my motion was trying to say. So whatever the wish of the body is, I have no problem, because I do support the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment on this. Would you mind retaking the chair so I can do that? Well, you can comment from there. Can I do that? Yeah. Okay. So I think it's a good motion. I supported it last time it was on the floor here at the school committee, and I think we've established the fact by the establishment of our STEM Academy at the elementary level. That we as a district believe in the STEM, the value of the labeling of the STEM and STEM moniker, and I think that we've already started to make plans to develop a middle school curriculum so that when those students graduate from the elementary level, they can move into the middle school. Creating a STEM curriculum at the high school, I'm supportive of that. I would also like to hear from the headmaster about his thoughts on it. But I would tend to agree with Mayor Kennedy that let's vote on it. Let's show our support, our lack thereof, of the idea of moving toward the STEM curriculum, and then also have the high school subcommittee talk to Mr. Martin and his staff about how it will be implemented. So, I would prefer not to substitute it with a referral, but I would suggest that maybe we could amend the original motion to say, approve the STEM Academy or approve the STEM curriculum at Lowell High School, and also send it to the Lowell High School subcommittee for analysis. Yes, Ms. Barton.
Thank you very much. If I could ask the superintendent to outline for us what the steps would be to implement this motion?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Martin. We'll do exactly that, Mr. Hoey. We will do that. I mean, as part of looking into implementing this motion, we will obviously not only be talking to the high school staff, leadership, but we have to be talking to the curriculum. I mean, we'll be working, our curriculum office will be doing that. So what you're looking at doing will be done as part of the motion. We have to do that.
So would we then be looking for a report to come back to this full committee on implementation and what the actual changes
Yes.
excuse me,
We'll-
that
we'll-
would be required in terms of investments and changes to scheduling and curriculum, that comprehensive package would come back to the full committee?
Absolutely. We will be looking at talking to them and trying to understand how these pathways, how close, how similar, and what do we need to implement a full STEM program as known throughout the state. And then we'll highlight what the resources needed, we'll highlight if anything else, we'll bring it back to the school committee in the form of a feasibility plan.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to refer the motion to the Lowell High School Subcommittee.
Mr. Chairman, I asked for a
Yes.
roll call and substitute motion, and just point out to Mr. Hoey that this can't be done without the headmaster's input, that he would have to be involved, as the superintendent has stated. The only reason that I object to the substitute motion is because I think it just delays action, and I think that if we want this in place for September, or try to get it in place in September, then we have to act now. We have to give the superintendent and the headmaster at Lowell High School as much time as possible in order to implement a curriculum like this.
Roll call on the substitute motion. On sending it to the subcommittee, yes.
Mr. Gendron.
No.
Mr. Gignac.
Yes.
Mr. Hoey.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
No.
Ms. Martin.
No.
Mr. Dakota. Ms. Doherty.
No.
5 nays, 2 yeas, motion fails.
Motion fails. So we're back to the original motion of establishing the STEM program at Lowell High School. Any further comment? We need a roll call on it. So all in favor, please say.
Roll call, please, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the mayor's requested a roll call.
Mr. Gendron.
Yes.
Mr. Gignac.
Yes.
Mr. Hoey.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Dakota. Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Okay. My first time on the chair and we have a controversy. What's going on here?
You're the knowledgeable. You do that.
The next order of business are reports from the superintendent, and the first report is the Knowledge Bowl update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask Mrs. Durkin to report on that.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. This is your annual invitation to the Catherine P. Stocklosa Middle School Knowledge Bowl. It's a wonderful annual event in which we celebrate our students' knowledge. And you will be hearing from us very soon, if you haven't already, with invitations to be participants and judges in this annual event. The preliminary rounds begin March 7th, and they'll go through until the 24th of March.
Anything else, Mr. Superintendent?
Yep, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the report as a report of progress. So moved.
Yes, I just had a quick question. I remember in past years, and I haven't been as up-to-date recently, we would invite members of the community to participate as judges. Are you still doing that? Because I thought that was a great way to kind of get the community involved in our schools in a very...
As of most recent, we had involved the committee and also members of the greater school community, administrators in the central office, but we can certainly investigate that.
I'm thinking
Be happy to do that.
Business leaders. I know one year we had the editor of the Lowell Sun come out as a judge, just to really open our community up to a very visible and positive thing that we have in our schools.
I will speak to Carolyn Rocheleau, the Special Programs Coordinator, tomorrow relative to
Thanks.
that.
Mr. Gendron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to encourage everybody, if you haven't done it before, to take part or at least attend the Knowledge Bowl. It's really a terrific event, very exciting, very competitive. So if you're a judge, you better be on your game because it's a serious business. But it's really a great showcase of the talent that we have in the Lowell Public Schools. So I'd encourage everybody to take it on.
Any further discussion? Chair would entertain a motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. Gendron, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next is a quarterly financial report. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll have Mr. Frank Antonelli give us that report. Thank
you, Mr. Superintendent. So the school committee has in front of them reports for the general fund as well as the grants and the revolving accounts. As far as the general fund is concerned, there are 3 reports. The first report is a comparison between FY 14, 15, and 16. And it shows the budget, any transfers, any expenditures or encumbrances. And what we note when we look at this particular report is that consistently at this time of year, as of December 31st, the school department is spending between 43 and 46% of your budget. Also, you'll note that the encumbrances are a little bit higher than they have been in past years, and there are 2 very good reasons for that. One is your school committee suspense account, which we've encumbered that large amount of money for salaries, and the other is this particular year we've encumbered a lot of money for special ed out-of-district tuitions. It's not unusual to do that. In fact, I think it's a very good practice to do that early on in the year so that you have a good handle on what you're projecting to expend for the remainder of the year. I've also looked at the insurance account and have noted to the school committee at the previous meeting that particular account is approximately $300,000 in the red, and we're taking a close look at that. That's for our health insurance, and that's a matter of not only part of it is budgeting, but the other part of it is that people change their health insurance needs throughout the year. So if you have people moving from a single plan to a family plan or a more expensive plan, then you'll see these costs rise. I've also looked at the I've looked at all of the accounts, but in particular, the transportation account for special ed, I believe, is going to run a deficit this year. It's projected at approximately $179,000 as a deficit. You have more students coming in, or the transportation needs changed. You may need a one-on-one, you may need some monitors. All of these are factors in increasing the costs for transportation. And when we went into a contract with the special ed provider, we thought that there would be some more savings, but those have not been realized this year. I've looked at the substitute teacher account, which seems to be in good shape for this time of the year. And I've also spent a considerable amount of time with the special ed director, who I'm happy to see out in the audience tonight. And she and I and other people on her staff have reviewed the out-of-district tuitions. And at this time of the year, we're in good shape, financially speaking, for those. That can change, as you know, overnight, and very often does in special education. So those are the highlights, if you will, of the general fund. We also have grants. As you know, we have several grants, and I'm pleased to say that for this report, we have 8 more grants than we had the last time we reported, and that's an increase of approximately almost $400,000, which is a great sign for the school district. There are no other significant changes in the grant, so it is going as it should, and I'm sure at the end of the year, all of those funds will be expended, so we're in good shape with the grants. The revolving accounts, we have 2 reports for the revolving accounts. One is a summary that shows you the difference between the last time we reported and this time, and you won't find many differences, except you will see that you refer to it as the milk and lunch revolving account, that it has increased significantly since the last time we reported. So I wanted to bring your attention to something that I put on your desk, which is the same report that was in the Dropbox and is in part of your package. These reports can sometimes get confusing, and I just wanted to take a minute to go over it, if I could, with you. When you look at the milk and lunch revolving account, on the left-hand side, halfway down the page, you see where it says the period. The 00 is the opening balance that you brought forward from the previous year. And then each number there, 01 is, for example, July, 02 August. So we have our 12 months here. So the report, as you know, is as of December 31st, so it goes to the 6th period, and the 3.2 million is the amount that is actually in the fund as of December 31st. However, you see a number right below that, which is 2.8 million, and that refers to the amount of money when this actual report was done. At the bottom of the page, you'll see that that report was done on January 12th. So it shows you the difference between December 31st and the January 12th figure. And some of those expenses, the reason why that fund balance has decreased is because bills were paid for December in the beginning of January. So it gives you a clear indication of the expenses in the revolving account. Other than that, all of the accounts within the revolving account look very similar to the accounts as they were given to the school committee on September 30th. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Antonelli, for providing this report. I think in the future, regarding the general fund reports, perhaps if we could have the detail so we could pick up on those areas of concern, because with this actual report, it's just a summary, so it's tough to actually to locate that within the big categories. And I think perhaps some of the issues that you brought up should be discussed within the finance subcommittee. If that's okay with the chair, I would like to make a motion to refer this report in addition to the comments that you've made to the finance subcommittee for further discussion.
Excellent. And Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would say that I'd be happy to provide more detail for that general fund and the other funds so that you can review that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Gignac to refer this to the Finance Subcommittee. Second. Second by Mr. Gendron. Discuss, Ms. Martin.
Thank you. Not respectful of referring it to the subcommittee, but just another question. In terms of this total we're looking at in the milk and lunch revolving account, does that include the unpaid, the portion that was that we need to refund to parents from last year?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Do you know what the total of that is?
I don't, but I'll email it to you tomorrow. I have a meeting on this topic tomorrow at 9 o'clock, so once I get that resolved, I'll send you an email.
Okay, that's great. I have to confess, the first I had heard of this was last week at the Citywide Parent Council meeting.
Right.
So I wasn't aware that we had parents who were waiting for refunds. But I do understand the complicated nature of it and having to go through the city and figure that all out. So it would be great, in addition to getting the amount, once you have your meeting, if you could share with the whole committee what the resolution is, because I'm confident you'll be able to find a way to repay these
Thank you.
parents.
We'll get that out as soon as possible.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? All opposed? So voted. Next order of business is, from the superintendent, is modular classrooms for the Wang School. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is kind of a follow-up of the motion that Mr. Gendron was referring to earlier. There were discussions and reports presented with respect to the new class, the expected fifth graders of next year. I'm going to ask Mr. Frank Antonelli to present this report on the modular classrooms request.
Thank you. So we have been meeting as an administrative team in the central office along with some other principals, and we have been reviewing information related to a topic that was just discussed a few minutes ago, and that is the bubble that we see in enrollments. Next year, in particular, it will be hitting the middle schools. Mr. Dakota had outlined a proposal to suggests that we should have modular classrooms at 3 of the middle schools. And we reviewed that and talked to people and decided that we think we need the modular classrooms next year at the Wang School in particular. We're talking about 2 classrooms. I have spoken with the financial team for the city manager's office, and I have talked to the purchasing agent for the city. There's a process that you need to go through in order to get modular classrooms. They cost approximately $36,000 for each classroom. If you have more than $100,000, or if the design of the bid specification and overview of the construction is estimated to cost more than $10,000, then you need to bid for designer services. Fortunately for us, if we're talking about 2 classrooms at $36,000 each, if we were to purchase them, that would be $72,000. I have a quote from a firm that we've done business with and is a good firm. They've done a lot of work in the school department as well as the city, and their quote for the designer services portion is below $10,000. So we would not need to bid that particular part of the bid, which is good because we're kind of up against it time-wise if we want to make sure that these modulars are in place by September. So we are going to, we would like to go ahead, have a contract with this company to provide the bid specifications. They would also help us evaluate the bids as well as provide the contract administration. And then we would like to get going right away on advertising for bid specifications so that we can get 2 portable modular classrooms at the Wang School. And when we do bid it, I think that what we'll do is say we're either going to purchase them or we're going to lease them. So we may have an option to go one way or the other. Still need to talk to the purchasing agent a little bit about that. I have spoken recently with Connor Baldwin in the city manager's office, the CFO, and he said that they're ready to sit down with us and help us develop a plan cooperatively to move forward with this proposal.
Okay, we don't have a motion on the floor. Is there a motion to approve? Motion approved by Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second to the motion? Second by Mr. Dakota. Mr. Gendron on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Antonelli. Mr. Antonelli, have we thought about, the benefits of, doing this in a larger volume than just the 2 classrooms that we need next year? My understanding is that if you need 4 or 6 or 8, even if you don't need them all in one year, that there may be benefits to buying in volume, especially if we know that in the subsequent years, we're going to need them. That was kind of the intent of my original motion, was not just to look at what we need next year, but what are we going to need for the next 5 years, and let's work with this company and put together a plan so that we can get potentially a better financial deal from them over time. Have we considered that at all?
I'm going to defer.
Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did look at it, and we're looking at it at a different angle. It's actually the motion that was brought by both of you in various, you last year and Ms. Connie this year, is because we wanted to look at other options that not necessarily just these what do you call them, modular classrooms. We don't think that should be the only thing we need to look at. We wanted to come back to the school committee with various options, answering as part of answering the motions, and these options could be lease of space, could be several things. So if we lock ourselves into getting these in large quantities for various schools, we kind of diminish the work of what we're trying to do as a team in looking at various options, bringing them to the school committee as different options to look at, not just the modulars. That's why we decided for this year, since time is of the essence and we need to get this decision really in a very short time, in a month and a half, we need to work with the city to start the purchasing process. This 1 month is not going to be sufficient for us to come back with a reasonable, comprehensive plan for the next, because we have, according to our numbers that we have, the forecasts that we get, this bubble is going to continue for 4 years. So it's, like you said earlier, it's the entire middle school. So it's a problem that's going to continue for at least the next 4 years. So we want to come up with other alternatives, not just the modulars. It might turn out that the modulars are the best solutions, or it might not.
Mr. Antonelli, do you have something to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add that in terms of the designer services, what you said, Mr. Gendron, is very true. There is an economy of scales. The more you go out for, the less it should be. However, in this case, because of the time, if we were to go out for more, it would cost us more for the designer services, and it may trip that threshold of $10,000. And if it did trip that threshold, then we would need to bid for the designer services. If we bid for the designer services, that's going to take a little bit additional time to get it done. So you have the designer services bid process that you would have to go through, and you would have the actual bid process that you have to go through. And since we want to get things done in September, I think that we have a good plan, and I would just like to say that the central administration under Mrs. Durkin's leadership has done a lot of work in looking at different options for future years, and that's where everyone is focused on the future years to make sure that the school department is all set.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
So it sounds like there's a time issue with the current crunch.
Yes.
But perhaps, going forward, 2017 and beyond, we can think about that economy of scale if indeed the modules is the way to go.
That's true.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gendron. Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. So looking at this as a kind of immediate response to an immediate crisis, looking at September of next year, what do we see as the overage in terms of students entering middle school? Do we know what that number is? Like, what is the bubble?
We do. It's a little bit over 200. It's around 220 or something. Don't quote me on the exact number, but I know it's over 200.
Okay.
And it's in various middle schools that will be affected. We talked to all the middle schools about it, and they think they would be able to accommodate in a very difficult way, but they will accommodate their share of the increase except for the WANG, and that's why we came back with the WANG request.
And do you have a projection on what the class sizes would be in this scenario?
We will. We will
Okay.
provide it to you as part of that report that we will be bringing to you.
Okay. Because it would be interesting to compare it. I mean, I'm looking at 2 classrooms as a solution for maybe 50 kids. So if we've got 200, that way we need to be placing that is going to have an impact across. If we're talking one class, the 5th grade class, that's going to have a pretty dramatic impact on what that class size is, which is obviously something we pay close attention to.
Yes, but I think with the solution that we're going to go for next September, we're not putting the kids in the existing classrooms. We might be actually looking at increasing the number of classrooms. It just so happens that some of the schools might be able to provide that extra classroom where the WANG doesn't have physical space. It's an issue of physical space. We are trying very hard to make sure that we're not going to be going to 34, 35 students in the classroom.
But you feel confident there are underused or unused classrooms that they'll be
I
moving
wouldn't say
into?
that. I wouldn't say that they're in. I mean, I have some of the principals, I think, around here where they'll tell you there is no underused.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. So, well, it's hard for me here to give you the details on the others because we weren't ready to present that full
okay.
picture, but I'll be very happy to put it on next meeting's agenda. Very happy to provide you with all
Okay,
the
so we'll look
details.
then at the additional 150
Sure.
and how we'll be resolving that.
Give you the full picture on that.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Mr. Antonelli, did you have a further comment on that?
No, superintendent.
Yeah, okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Gendron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to suggest that I think it makes sense to go forward with the plan as you've laid forward, but perhaps we can also have a report to the facility subcommittee as long as the chair is okay with that, about this plan, the costs around it, and the going forward thoughts. I think that's a discussion that we should probably have on a regular basis. So I'll make that as a motion that we request that this report out to the facility subcommittee.
Okay, we have an amendment to the motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Hoey. Discussion on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? All opposed? The amendment's voted. On the main motion, the chair would ask for a roll call on the main motion if there's no further discussion. Okay. Ms. Doherty? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Superintendent.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification, which report? The one that I mentioned, that long-term report? Or
think-
the one about the 2 classrooms?
I think both. I think we want to take a look at, I think we want to keep an eye on, the ability to acquire these 2 classrooms, what that is going to take, and also the long-term report.
Okay, because they're 2 different things. The long-term report, we're working on it. It's going to take much more time. It's going to have to be 2 different reports.
I think it should be both.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Right.
2
I
different
think both
reports
should
at 2
be
different
reported
times.
out to the subcommittee.
Okay, it's clear.
Thank you.
Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question. We're voting on moving this forward. However, there's no funding, there's no dollar amount here, and there's no proposal on where the funds are going to be coming from. So, what are you asking of the body tonight?
Just wanted to inform the school committee and to make sure that there are no reservations about us going out to bid for modular classrooms. It's a big move for the school district.
Right.
And we thought that we should bring it before the school committee to say, okay, let's move forward.
Okay, and then it will appear on a permission to enter in the future as regards the architectural.
Exactly,
Okay.
because we'll have conversations with the city about funding this, and then we'll keep the school committee apprised of that.
Perfect. Just wanted to make that clear.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Next matter from the superintendent is Project Learn and LPS grant updates.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As you know, most of you know what Project Learn is. If for those of you who don't, it's a nonprofit group that's been formed. I think one of their main mission is to help schools raise funding for the schools. What you see in front of you is a summary of what was raised so far. They've been very active in helping schools raising funds and working with various groups within the schools. The biggest initiative we're working with them is what has been termed as the Lowell Promise Initiative, which brings the 3 institutions together, the University of Massachusetts in Lowell, Middlesex Community College, and the Lowell Public Schools. As you know, we already have several partnerships with them. So the first exercise that we did is we tried to take an inventory of all the relationships and the partnerships that we have so that we can see if there is any way that we can consolidate all of those into one goal, one mission to work with. We've had already a couple of meetings with them, with the 2 other institutions. They formed a working committee of 2 members from each institution, and I think it shows already quite a bit of promise. Everybody's really interested in figuring it out, how to come out of the box and have some innovative programs between the 3 institutions. Thank you.
The chair would entertain a motion to accept as a report of progress by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Gendron. Ms. Doherty.
Yes, through you, I had a question for the superintendent. I wonder if you could explain what Courageous Conversations
Oh,
series
yes.
is about?
Yes, thank you.
And I don't know if other people have heard of it, but it's new for me, so I'd love to know what
It's
about.
actually, yes, thank you very much. As part of the grants that they got as the latest grant that we successfully got was from the Parker Foundation for what we term as a courageous conversation. That's a common term used in the industry to discuss diversity and diversity plans and in schools. And They came and the Parker Foundation Board, we presented to them, and they liked what we wanted to do in our schools with diversity and the plans that we had for PD, for training. So this grant funding that you see is really going to go into professional development for the most part, into training leaders and training teachers, well, in the area of diversity and coexistence, if you wish, together, to work better together.
Would that be K to 12?
K to 12, yeah, K to 12.
All set. Ms. Martin?
Just to follow up on Ms. Doherty's question, so there wouldn't be any direct student component to this. It's all for the teaching staff.
Not in this grant, yeah. There is we are in discussion through them and through various groups, Parker Foundation and others, to try to get additional funding to address direct student type of programs. But this grant is specifically designed just for the leadership and teachers.
Mm-hmm. Was the budget that was submitted to Parker Foundation, I'm assuming we included all the necessary per diem and all those payments?
Of course. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, we did. We actually had submitted three different grants requests, but we got only one out of the three,
Yeah, you
which
can't
is
only be
good.
so
We're
greedy.
thankful. Yeah.
Anything further? The motion is to accept it as a report of progress. All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next item of business is a personnel report. Chair would entertain a motion to accept that as a report of progress. So moved by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Gignac. Discussion on that. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Now we move on to new business. Under new business, the first item is a permission to post for a part-time Office of Accountability Developer. Do we have a motion to approve? We have a motion to approve by Mr. Gendron, seconded by Mr. Dakota. Discussion, Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question. I noticed on the last report, there was an item regarding the dashboard for basically for this program. I remember when you proposed the accountability office, the dashboard was a big part of it. I was just curious, the fact that you didn't receive those funds, is that going to stall this process?
No, I think no, we're not going to stop. We're going to continue to seek other ways that we can maybe get grants toward the dashboard development, and at the very, very last resort, we're looking at a low-end solutions.
Yeah.
We've already had Mr. Paul Slickman here, our data analyst, went to visit some of our other friends' districts that are using some very custom-made low-end. But we will have something
Okay,
doing that.
Thank
We
you.
won't abandon that.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you. So I know we have this one page on the Office of Accountability. First off, could you give us an estimate of how much you think is going to be expended with this new position?
Funding-wise,
Yeah.
we had estimated at the time. We didn't really kind of estimate. We limited it because we're restricting the funding to be from the grants funding.
Title I.
Title I that allows us to spend it for school improvement, and we're limiting it to what we have available, which is $75,000 for the year. So hopefully, we get a lot less than that, to spend a lot less than that, and but in any case, we won't be able to go further. We don't really know, to answer your questions, because is it going to be 20? Is it going to be 15? Is it going to be 50? Because this is most of the other districts that have this, they move strictly to hiring a full-time person to do this. We're not doing that, so we're trying to take a conservative approach to try to develop something unique to us and just get the help of somebody who's an expert in the area, has done it before, and maybe retired, maybe doing something else, moved on to doing something else, to help us build such an office and all the relationship, the job descriptions, the support, the ways they're going to relate to other departments and support them. So that's what we're looking for.
So when we're talking about the Title I's funds, could you tell me what they're available to be spent on? I know you're saying that we can spend them on school improvement. Is that the Are they designated specifically for professional development in these types of consulting relationships? Or would they be funds that would be available to our students?
No, they're within the title fund, and we have our coordinator here. If you need to give any more clarification, I'll ask for permission that she would address.
Sure.
But within the title funds, that when they do, they always have those classifications. Some monies that are allowed to be spent for consultants, some monies that are allowed to spend for direct programming for children, some for hiring, whatever it is. And sometimes, of course, they would entertain movements in between. Right now, we're looking at, obviously, whatever we can spend under consulting.
I guess my question would be, is it specifically delineated for consulting? Because I know that we've been in that situation in the past, where there's grant funds that come in that can only be used for consultants. They cannot be used for, say, a full-time position, which I can understand. I guess we spent a great deal of time talking about, quite honestly, the needs of our ELL population. The idea of bringing in an additional teacher who could actually work with students, even for these 6 months, I would find compelling. A compelling use for Title I funds in terms of what they're meant to be designated as. And even $75,000, I know that we're not looking at that as a huge number, but it's a teacher. It's a teacher and a half for 6 months.
I'm pretty sure that the funding that we're using, correct me please, Ms. Pacheco, that we are not allowed to use them for permanent
So that's a
positions.
specific designation then? So someone can say that?
Actually, within the grant, we have a number of different categories.
Right.
So of course, we have an instructional line, and we have administration, we have support services, and then we have stipends and contractual service lines, as well as materials. So we have the full range of opportunities within the grant, and we identify needs, and then we use our
Best judgment.
funds in the best way that we can to meet the immediate needs that we identify.
So we'd have the opportunity, if we chose to spend this money on student costs as opposed to consulting costs. So I'm asking if it's a judgment call, that you're recommending that this is the best use for these funds rather than using them for teaching staff that would go directly to be in the classroom.
At this point, that's what I'm recommending we use these funds to establish the Office of Accountability, to help us establish it, because for the greater goal of what we're trying to do to support the strategic plan, which includes part of it, the ELL obviously support, but it is a much larger goal to try to move us ahead.
So in terms of, and I know that, and you know that I've had concerns around this to begin with, so there are no surprises in this world. Would it be possible for you to show us, even without the bringing in a consultant, how this office, these existing positions exist? Perhaps a chart, an organizational chart that could show us what exists now and what you're hoping to move towards?
We already moved towards. We have these.
So
people
could you
are the
show us
same-
then what the difference is from what existed a week ago to what exists now?
Yeah, we could do that for you.
Okay, so that would be a great piece of information for us to have to understand what you're moving towards. For myself, I'd also like to see what the difference is in job descriptions, because obviously we're changing something pretty,
Well-
I'm anticipating this to be a pretty dramatic change to go through this expense and this process. So will we have an opportunity? I mean, obviously, any new job postings need to get voted on, and if you're changing positions, you're,
Losing me, I'm sorry. You're losing me a little bit here.
okay.
ahead.
Well, I guess my question is, you're developing a new office, and yet from what I read here, the bones of it exist already.
Right.
And you wanted to turn it into something different,
No,
correct?
the people that we have moved, and we have discussed this into the personnel subcommittee when we presented this the people that we are moving to
Right.
these, we're putting them to work together and aligning their work together to support the strategic plan. The core of their work, let's pick one, Mr. Neary. The core of his work is still school improvement. He's in charge of the school improvement, but we're doing it now as aligned to support the strategic plan. Right now, they're the core they're the core team that are helping build that strategic plan. Later on, when the strategic plan is completed, they will be if you wish, the caretakers or the overseers of the implementation of the strategic plan, that all of us, from superintendent to all the schools to all the principals, that their work, their goals are aligned with, their progress is aligned with the expectations and the KPIs of the strategic plan. So what they do is not going to change drastically the way they do it in terms of its alignment.
So you're aligning to a new model?
It's aligning, and I think what this person, that we're seeking this person to help us, is to help us exactly develop what you're asking us to present, which is exactly how does Ms. Neary's position of school improvement, Director of School Improvement, how is it going to be now aligned with the strategic plan? How are they going to be supporting the various departments and evaluate and helping them establish, initiate a self-evaluation or so forth. So that's what we're looking for that technical help to help us redesign what we do it better, more efficiently, and aligned.
So previously, where, say, Mr. Neary was doing that work in alignment with our school improvement plan and our district improvement plan and those different accountability measures that were in place, he'll now be doing the same work, only aligning with a strategic plan.
And it might be different accountability, different performance indicators. Right now, most of the work, and maybe we should let Mr. Neary, with your permission, Mr. Bayer, explain what he's doing now and what, that, and how different it is in division.
Because, I mean, I'm assuming we're using the same metrics. I mean, we're using standards, we're using MCAS scores, we're using those same performance measures.
Not necessarily. We have a lot more other, yes, and more. Yes, and more. For instance, when you're looking at let's pick an example that is not directly related to curriculum. It is,
Okay.
but not directly related to curriculum. Because this is exactly why we need an accountability office, because often people refer to us when they talk about high performance, they refer to us strictly with respect to curriculum and MCAS and maybe PARC, maybe MCAS 2 coming up. But we're looking at, in my book, accountability is also how efficient are we doing our own duties. Example, in the IT service. IT is a service, and how well are we doing in IT service? Are we meeting expectations of our teachers in the classrooms when we bring a certain technology? Are we giving them the service they need? What's the service quality there? These are the measures that we need to establish for every department as we service each other and we service our students and our teachers. And that's the thing that I think we need to start realigning. Our performance indicators are going to be different. They're going to have the traditional ones, the curriculums and the results of your testings and so forth, but they're going to have a lot more in there. And how can we do that? All these people are very qualified people, but they've never done the other performances. Now, how do we do that and mesh it very well with what we do and make it work aligned with the strategic plan?
So as we're going through our strategic, and I'll stick with technology,
Yeah.
since that seems like a good example. I know I think it was our last technology subcommittee meeting, we received a report from the technology staff that showed the reduction in time in terms of ticket turnaround. That, a teacher at the Pine School has a problem with a printer, submits a work order or a ticket for that to be fixed, they were able to make the comparison between the last 2 years to show how dramatically that had improved.
Right.
Is it going to be that same kind of measure?
It's going to be, some of those will be the same and might be more. Like a measure of that. Some concern that we hear constantly from our teachers is the PD in the classroom, the support on the tools, not the hardware, but on the service, on the software, on the technology that we bring them. How do we measure that? What is the expectation on that, and how we're going to know that we're there or we're not there? So I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have every department in the school and as we have expectations on the schools. The schools is a lot easier to work with in today's model is because we have the state model with the levels and we judge them by the levels and so forth. But we don't have anything like that for the department. So what we want to do is we want to work with the departments. How do we know that the superintendent's office, the curriculum's office, or anybody are meeting expectations, or are we putting over expectations on them? Are we breaking them without even knowing it? So that's part of the strategic plan, because when you're establishing your strategic plan, you're setting up goals for not only for the entire institution, but these goals are then they go down to individual goals for the departments. Now, these goals, you'd have to measurements to measure them, thus the dashboard we were talking about earlier. But then, so this team, if you look at the composition of this team, you have a school improvement, our school improvement officer on it, because that's the person that looks at all these things. We have the data specialist on it, who now is going to be refocusing not just the data specialist, but the data team, because we have a couple of other people.
Is that a shift from IT and technology, the data specialist?
The data specialists currently are part of the curriculum, and now they're going to be part of the accountability office. And then we have the grant person, because through the grant and the Title I, there we have a lot of the programs that we do. And then we
So,
have.
I'm sorry, because this is the first time I've heard this list, so I apologize. So your grants person, is that the grants manager position?
No, we have the Title I person sitting, Ms. Kojeka, behind you.
Okay. Well, you can understand my confusion.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
that's fine.
Title I
That's
being
fine.
one grant. That's great, thank you. Okay, continue, I'm sorry.
That's the biggest, that's why we refer to it. And then we have the leadership development person that's going to be part of that to make sure that all the training, the PD, the leadership PD, and the Teachers Academy are also aligned with
That's your
that.
HR position, the HR position?
That's already an existing person sitting right behind us, Dr. Cheryl Kirkpatrick.
Okay. From the Teacher Academy?
Yes. And from the Leadership Academy.
Okay. I appreciate getting this information, honestly, and I'm starting to get a sense of where you're trying to move with this. I'll be honest with you, any expense that we make right now, I'm really slow to do. I don't, given what our current budget looks like, more importantly, given what it's going to look like next year, the idea of creating even a part-time position, I don't think, I have a hard time justifying that.
If I may just offer you an explanation, and I hope you take it in the spirit that it is given. This
I
is
hope
not an
so, too.
expense, this is an investment. That's the way I would like to look at it.
Uh-huh. I can completely understand that, absolutely, but it's, well, obviously we'll go for a vote, so thank you very much.
Thank you, thank
And
you.
if we could continue to get additional information, it would really be
Yeah,
helpful to.
we'll be happy to
decision
present
making.
again, if you wish, to the Personnel Subcommittee for the development and where we are at any time.
We could do
you'd
it,
like, yeah.
that would be great, but I think starting with an actual just org chart certainly would help me envision where you're trying to go.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Ms. Doherty?
Sorry, through you to the superintendent, I just have a question. Is this it's not a permanent part-time position, is it? Or it's
No,
a limited?
no, this is just,
I'm in to do this project. kind of
I've
thing.
done that job. I was in charge of the, no, it is temporary. I've done that job for the Arlington Public Schools when I was the assistant superintendent for accountability. And that was, so I know how to do that job, but I don't have the time to do it right now.
But
I'm doing something
it has a
else.
limited time frame. We're not bringing somebody
No,
on.
this is the goal, and I apologize if this did not come through clearly. The goal of this, that's why I said I don't know how much we're going to spend, because the goal of this is limited to June 30. We want to finish this exercise, come back with the final plan and everything for June 30 with very clear job descriptions, the processes, hopefully the dashboard if we're successful, also the strategic plan target date is also to have it finished toward that time, so it can enter into effect on July 1st. So we're trying to bring all of these together by hopefully July 1st with the new fiscal year. So I apologize again if it appeared that it's a permanent, it isn't. It's a temporary position that is limited. That's why we don't know how much we're going to spend. We could spend just 15, 20, I don't know, but our maximum is that, what that is available.
Anything else, Ms. Doherty? Any further discussion? The motion is to approve. Chair would ask for a roll call.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
No?
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 nay, approved.
Thank you.
The next item of business is a budget transfer in the amount of $21,000 from professional learning community stipends to Lowell Teachers Academy stipends. Chair would entertain a motion to approve. Motion approved by Mr. Hoey, seconded by Mr. Dakota. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Oh, roll call, excuse me, roll call.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Press that button, yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
The next item under new business is a discussion and vote on the adoption of park for school year 2015-2016. There'll be an oral report from the superintendent. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, the district had a year ago had gone with AMCAS. This year, we had just stayed the course. We didn't really look at necessarily going to AMCAS of Park. We didn't do any of that. We just assumed we might as well stay on course, brought that to the previous school committee, and they had voted to stay on course with AMCAS. Now, since then, we've heard a lot. I know we've heard a lot of concerns, myself included, on Park, the way it had been delivered. I know in my previous district, when we had tried the Park online, it was nearly a disaster, particularly in the lower grade. And we had expressed concern like that to the Department of Education, and so were many other districts expressed their concern on that, the online piece of it. What we're looking at currently is, as a result of the visit of the district commissioner a couple weeks ago, where he had come in and suggested to us that we might want to go and reconsider that position. And I explained to him that we definitely are against the online, and that brought up the whole topic of discussion of the 2019 guidelines of going online, and we told him how it is very difficult, and that's a topic for another time, but we brought that up to him as well. And he offered that, he said, well, you can take all of it on paper. So that's, I think, alleviates some of the concerns of many people who are concerned about the online piece. The second thing that I have to, we have great schools. We have wonderful level 1 schools. Bartlett, let me get it right now, Bartlett. Bartlett has just been announced again as a level 1. Congratulations to Bartlett. So now we have one more. We have several level 2, and even among our level 3s are those that are doing really, really well. They continue to progress. This is definitely thanks to the work of our teachers and the leaders of the schools. Our congratulations to them. However, it is no secret, and it is common knowledge that we still have a couple of very serious cases, a couple of schools where we still need to put a lot of work to try to help them do and emulate the work of those that have been doing really well. I'm convinced that we will be able to do that in due time. I'm convinced that we can help these schools. We have great teachers, as I said. We have great leaders. We have great models right next door, so we can learn from them and do it. What we need is time, and time is what we might not have, because unfortunately, the way the system of the state works is that if any one of your schools get hit by a level 4 label, the entire district will suffer from that level 4 label. And I don't wish that upon any district, because it's demoralizing, particularly to our teachers who've been working really hard, and our school leaders working really hard to achieve that level 1 and 2, and those who have been maintaining progress within level 3. That's the last thing I would want to wish upon them, to be belonging to a level 4 district. And part of his message, the district commissioner, was clearly presenting that and saying, look, if you go into Park, well, look at the advantages. And number one, he's saying, well, you can do that all paper, so you don't have to worry about the online challenges you had before. Number two, he made it no secret that the MCAS 2 is going to be pretty much a hybrid, but much more looking as the Park than it looks as MCAS. And I think that's common knowledge around the state, that's the direction that they're taking. So for our students to have the ability, and our teachers to have the ability to administer this test, which is going to look very much like the MCAS 2, without penalizing us, because that's what he was offering, is that you can do this in any district, not just us, any district that's taken MCAS and moves to Park will not be penalized. They will not be held accountable for any, if they were to slip back. If they were to go better, that will count. It's not in a year that doesn't count. It's just that they will not they'll hold you harmless. That's the term that he had used. So in looking at this, the advantages of if you're doing this kind of test, which is going to resemble pretty much MCAS 2, and if you're going to be held harmless, essentially what he's telling us is we're going to give you a year and a half or better to get your act together in helping your schools. I need that time. We need that time. Our leaders, our teachers need that time. And if they have that time, they can work with no threat of anything. And as you know, there's nothing better than working without threat. Then you can have, try to be innovative and try to achieve something, as opposed to working constantly under that demoralizing threat. So I think it's an opportunity that we have to take. It doesn't really, people ask me, well, are the students ready to take part? I'm sorry, I have full confidence in our teachers. Our teachers teach the standards. They do not teach the tests. We do not teach tests. And you've been a teacher, we discourage that very much. We teach the standards, which is by definition, we have some principals here, you're welcome to invite them to comment on these. When we teach the students, we teach them for the standards, and if the both tests, speak to the standards, then they should have no problem. The problem we would have had would have been if we were to administer it online. I agree with you, that's a serious challenge. And it really doesn't give you a real picture of the student's ability, because you don't know whether they did poorly because of the online or because of the content area. However, I have full confidence in our teachers to do it because they don't teach to the test. I've visited schools, they teach the standards, and they will rise to the challenge, and they'll do it. But even before we did that, we shared, before we came and recommend to you that let's take this offer. We have polled, my office, not just personally myself, but my office had polled all the principals and gotten their feedback. I have been in contact and discussion with our teachers, our friends, the UTL, and I shared the full details with the leadership of the UTL, and they understand where we're coming from. I don't think they changed their position, and they're not all of a sudden waking up and support big fans of PARCC or testing. They will always remain anti-testing, as most of us don't like testing anyway. However, they understand as well why we're doing this. This is for the greater good of the district, to getting more time for our schools to work and to try to achieve their goals. And it really is not harming us in any way. We can. So our recommendation is that we do go take this PARCC online and we'll buy ourselves some time.
Do we have a motion to approve? Motion to approve by Mr. Artie, second of the motion. Chair will second the motion. Any discussion on the motion, Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a number of questions. First would be, I was a little disappointed to receive the packet, not have any of that discussion in writing. And I think it was disappointing that the public was unable to really figure out why we're having this discussion. And I know we all know why we're having the discussion, because we spoke with you and we spoke with your assistants. But this being the first discussion we're having on this big topic altogether, leaves me in the position that I don't feel comfortable approving it at this point. There are a number of questions I still have that are outstanding, but I do thank your staff for answering most of them and collecting those answers. But one being, I had inquired about accommodations for our special needs students in the IEPs. And I was surprised to see that some of the accommodations were allowed, but there are accommodations that are still not allowed under the PARCC test. Also, the issue of having the test be timed, and MCAS is not timed, and to change this on our students 2 months before they're taking the test, I think is really not fair to them. Also, I think it's difficult to to understand why the state would ever have a policy where if you have 1 or 2 schools in level 4, your entire district is level 4. I think half of our schools are actually level 1 and level 2, which we should be very proud of. And if we do have schools that are teetering on level 4, then it is my opinion that those kids deserve the very best now, and that we should not be waiting the year or 2 years being held harmless, and those changes should be made now, because those kids deserve the best today and should not have to wait. I also don't understand why this is being brought forward right now, and I think the previous committee took a stand in October, and all of the deadlines have passed, and we needed to decide offline by last Friday. And I didn't think that was appropriate because we didn't get to discuss it as a body, and we didn't just get to receive input from the public. I did talk to a number of teachers, principals, parents, administrators, but from the general public, I didn't get to speak with anybody unless they reached out to me, which a few did. So for that, I just simply, I am uncomfortable moving forward with this tonight. I do understand how becoming a level 4 district would be very harmful for our district as a whole, but I think if we have level 4 schools, they should be treated as such and not covered up with this held harmless term. But I look forward to the discussion of the superintendent.
Any further discussion? Mr. Superintendent?
Yeah, I just want to make sure to address one more thing. We're not trying to cover up anything in terms of the schools. We are helping them. We're trying to help them. I'm just trying to be a realist. There is no way we're going to be changing in 2 months. You know, running a school is like you're navigating a big cruise ship. You don't turn really fast. It takes time. And I think it's going to take us more than 2 months. And why now? To answer why now, honestly, it's the opportunity that presented. Because I had said that. I said, I think all the deadlines have passed anyway. And he said, no, that's all right. We will waive the deadlines. And it wasn't a decision taken lightly. It was a decision that we, as I said, we talked with all our experts on the field, all the school leaders, and we had to listen to what they had to say. And as far as not communicating in writing to this, I'll take the blame for that, but there was really no time, because since that opportunity presented itself, we spent all our time discussing this with the leaders, discussing this, how is this going to impact, and trying to get all this information about the SPED. The alt MCAS will still be offered because there is no alt park there is no alternative for park for the special ed students. So will the science. Is going to be MCAS, and as you know, there is no MCAS for the high school. So those students who are really, their grades matter a great deal, because these are the grades 9 through 12 that they're going to use to apply for colleges. It doesn't affect them at all. So we looked at it. I understand your concern, and as I mentioned more than once, none of us like sudden changes at the end. But I think this is a unique situation, a unique opportunity, and and we looked at all the districts who have moved from MCAS to Park, and I think this is a district that now we feel, after having been forced into a situation to look at it very carefully, intensely, in a very short time. And we have several leaders here. You can poll them and ask them. We feel collectively together, we feel comfortable making that change.
I understand. Thank you.
Ms. Doherty, then Mr. Gendron, then Mr. Dakota.
Thank you. I'd just like to comment. I happen to be one of those people who thought the park, just from people I had spoken to, was an improvement on MCAS. I know there was a lot of political concern about the test because were we going to lower our standards? But our people were there. We were the chair of that committee. And by our people, I mean the state of Massachusetts led that whole movement. My concerns about the park From what I'd heard, it really gives you, it looks at a student's creativity more, it looks more at the critical thinking skills. My concerns were, A, how we're going to do it online, we don't have the computer capability, and B, how are they going to judge us? Because as those of you might recall, when we first came out with MCAS, we were hit hard. The urban districts took a beating because it took them a couple of years to figure out such a thing as a growth model, that to compare a third grade classroom in Lexington or Wellesley with a third grade classroom in Lowell might be a little bit like apples and oranges. So those concerns were alleviated by this proposal to say, we're not going to do it online because we don't have the capability, we recognize that. The hold harmless, to me, it doesn't mean that we're waiting, or that we're not moving forward with what the information we gain from our students and how they do on the test. What it means is we're not going to be judged unfairly. And there's probably going to be a lot of kinks that they're going to have to work out with the accommodations, as my colleague Mr. Gignac mentioned, because it's new. But this idea of MCAS 2, I think Park is where we're going to be down the road. And to have the opportunity to get our students on board and our teachers comfortable with this approach, this new version of MCAS, I didn't see it as a loss for us. So I support the motion. I think it's the right way to go. Thank you.
Mr. Gendron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So through you to the superintendent, I had a couple of questions. So we can take it on paper. Do you know how long that, the ability to take it on paper would last? At some point, we're going to have to move to online, and do we have a date on that?
The date, well, there are two dates. Number one date is that from what we were told in our last meeting with the commissioner's office, is that MCAS 2 is going to come sooner than we think. So it's most likely that they'll move to MCAS 2 first. And they're trying to be aggressive and say it's the next period, next year. And today, actually, on the superintendent network, the whole buzz was, how are we scheduling our calendars for FY17 when we don't even know anything about MCAS 2, when it'll be administered? So according to their plan, if they stay with it, MCAS 2, this is it. This is the first time you take it Park on paper, and it would be also the last time, because if they're on their plans, because they would want to administer MCAS 2 next time. As far as MCAS 2...
So, I'm sorry, MCAS 2 is intended to be all online?
No.
Paper.
They will introduce first on paper, but they have already announced, as you recall through the media, that the plan of the Department of Education, unless they're slowed down, that all tests, whatever you're going to end up calling it, is going to be 100% online in 2019, and whether we like it or not. So we're trying to slow them down, but that's, as I said earlier, it's a different topic for different times.
Sure.
Try to lobby
Just,
to,
I realize I don't want to open the Pandora's box, but when you were having the discussion with the commissioner, did you talk to him about funding for the online implementation?
More than once, and we talked about it. We talked back in Marlborough as well at length, and Ms. Abrams was with me, was brought up a question by several districts to say, how are we going to pay for it? The Springfield district was, superintendent was with me then, and we both talked about it. It's like, how are we going to prepare for it?
Yeah.
And they don't really have an answer other than saying, well, the E-rate, you could use E-rate money. We're already using E-rate money, and E-rate doesn't pay, as you know, does not allow for computers. They only allow for infrastructure. So that's really not the right answer.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
I don't know.
If the state wants us to move to an online exam, and there has to be a significant influx of money coming from the state, it's just not going to happen. We ran a pilot program a couple years ago here in Lowell, where a portion of our schools went to online Park, and it essentially brought the IT department to its knees. It will cost us millions, not only in technology, but millions in resources to support it. But as you say, that is another issue that's coming. That's an issue for us whether we go with Park now or not. So, but it is something that needs to be considered. What about the workload for teachers? I mean, we're pretty. We know how to do the MCAS. We've been doing it for years. We have that procedure down. Do you see this as a major workload for the district to switch at this point in time? And with this kind of short notice, are we going to be putting an undue amount of work onto the administration and the teachers in the district.
Mr. Superintendent.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, with your permission, call on now any one of our principals, because we've discussed this, and they will be the first line. They'll be able to give you a much better answer. Anyone would like to? Yes, please.
Hello, I'm Matthew McClain. I'm at the Pawtucketville. I actually was at the Bartlett for the last 4 years and just transitioned to the Pawtucketville. Bartlett's now a level 1 school, and Pawtucketville's been a level 1 school thanks to the leadership of Matt Stahl. I just want to say, just break it down to the classroom level. The teachers at Pawtucketville, there are 10 teachers that this directly affects. Obviously, it affects the whole school, but between 3rd and 4th grade, the people who actually administered the test, it's about 10 teachers. They really, really unanimously want Park, and I'll tell you why. The MCAS test they see kind of as a dead test. It's done. And not only is it a dead test, but they're also changing some of it this year. So it's really confusing the teachers. They're like, what are we preparing for? There's a lot that goes into it. It's not teaching to the test, but it's getting the kids prepared, intellectually for this type of assignment. And they are very dismayed by the fact that MCAS might be the test that they're taking this year. They really want Park because the way they see it is we got 2 years, and they're not seeing it as, there's no accountability. They're seeing it as we have 2 years to get ready for the next challenge. They like what they see in the Park test. I've had numerous meetings on that. There's a lot of questions about comparing 2 tests, comparing 2 reading passages and have it to synthesize it and put it together. They like the direction it's going in. And right now, if I said to them, oh, by the way, we're going back to MCAS, they are going to really be bothered by that because for them, they're ready for the next challenge. And it really trouble them to think that, okay, we have to stop everything, prepare now for MCAS test, which is a different test, which the accountability is still there, as opposed to saying, okay, we have 2 years to get ready for the next challenge that we know is coming. So at the classroom level, the teachers working with the kids in the room, they're ready for the next challenge. They don't want to, they feel like they'll be stuck dead in the water if we're still focusing on MCAS, which by themselves, I called MCAS myself, and they said, oh yeah, it's going to be a different test this year. We're going to have different types of questions. So that really confuses the teachers. They don't know what is going to be on the MCAS. So not only does it have a level of accountability, but it also is an unknown quantity. Whereas the Park test, we have 2 years to get ready for it. They feel confident that they can do it, and they feel like they need that time. Let's start now. We have a series of data summits over the year, and they're ready to get going. They want to start looking at what do we need to do to prepare the kids for MCAS 2.0, which is going to be very heavy on Park-type questions. So as far as speaking on behalf of the Pawtucketville, I would say unanimously the teachers are in support of taking the next step, going to the Park, not sticking with what they consider a dead test. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. General, did you want to hear from anybody else?
If there's anybody else that wants to speak, I'd be more than happy. We have an all-star cast here tonight, so if anybody wants to get up and give us their support or dissent, I'd love to hear it.
Thank you for letting us speak tonight. My name's Jason McCreven. I'm the principal of the STEM Academy at the Rogers School. I'm going to bring it also down to a classroom level and start and think about the kids. And the way I'm looking at this is sort of like a scientist. I do work at the STEM Academy. And we have different skills that kids have to learn in order to take this test. They have to learn test-taking skills such as stamina. The passages that the kids will have to read are going to take longer. Okay? The actual content themselves. Some of the reading samples, at least on the reading test, we call it close reading, and it's more complex text. And then on top of that, just the regular test-taking skills that kids will need to know. But if you add technology on top of that, that's 2 major variables that we're looking at. So kids not only have to worry about the stamina, the content, and everything else, but they have to worry about the technology that goes along with this. So I'm looking at this as a positive in the way that let's get it on paper and pencil first and learn how the test works and give the kids a chance at really being successful on it. And then when it goes to online, at least they have those test-taking skills down, and hopefully they can apply it then to the technology that goes along with it. So I see it as a positive over a 2-year span to let the kids have a good chance at learning how to do all of it, as opposed to in 2 years when it's online, we're going to wham them with everything. They would have to do all of it at the same time. So that's one of the things that we were looking at. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Paul Schlichtman. I am the coordinator for research, testing, and assessment for the district, which means I'm your house psychometrician. In my other life, I'm chairman of the school committee in Arlington, so I was in your seat last month making this decision. And I'm a member of the Massachusetts Board of Education Advisory Council on Assessment and Accountability. And from all three positions, I come to you with an opinion that we should make the vote to move to Park. And I think the prevailing reason is that we have used MCAS well as a district. And it's not the accountability level that counts, it's the internal data that's really important. It's the compared to what on clusters of questions like open response questions, or in terms of geometry versus algebra. How are we doing compared to the rest of the state? And we can glean a lot of very valuable information on that metric. However, this year, in the 2015 administration, with the results we just got, only half the districts in the state took MCAS and half took Park. So there was a reliability issue. Fortunately, the districts that took MCAS and the districts that took Park were generally similar, so that there wasn't a skew urban versus suburban, high performing versus low performing, so that the comparison that the psychometricians who work for DESE were able to do was a fairly easy comparison to do because the two samples were similar. But this year, you're going to be down to roughly a quarter to a third of the schools doing MCAS, with the rest doing Park. You no longer have a metric of schools that become a valid comparison taking MCAS, because the bulk of the schools in the state are doing Park. The validity of the comparison to other schools on these measures is going to be better, just by virtue of the fact that more schools are doing Park. And so now, if we continue on MCAS, we are under the accountability rules for a test that is no longer reliable or valid. And we may have schools move from level 1 or level 2 down to level 3 based on an accountability decision on an unreliable instrument. We will get a full set of data from Park. Every school that took Park this year had a full set of data. The only difference will be is that when the data is presented, if this data would normally result in a change of accountability status downward, that would not happen. So there are a few dozen schools right now that were held harmless on this administration that may have dropped below that 20th percentile and went down to level 3, or moved from level 1 to level 2, that did not happen because of that hold harmless provision. We still have the data, we can make our internal decisions, we can compare our schools to each other, we can compare our schools to other schools, and we have a rich, robust set of data from Park that we will not have if we continue on MCAS. I mean, there are all sorts of political reasons why people want to take either stand, but just in terms of the underlying psychometrics of this and the validity of the data that we will have to work with internally to make informed decisions on how we should be looking at our curriculum, we will get richer, more valid data that our educators can use if we transition to Park now. In addition, that will give our kids 2 years of practice before it counts. They will have practice on this instrument. The teachers will know that they don't have to worry about it. We are learning how to administer this new type of test so that there's a lot of pressure removed from the teaching staff. And I think that anybody who has a level 1 or a level 2 school in this district is sitting here saying, please, let us have 2 years to have that status. Now, the other trick to this, and this is something that hasn't been determined yet, is that there's a commitment not to use 2015 data in further accountability decisions. How is that going to impact us? Well, I don't know. I can't answer that question because the state hasn't answered that question. But there may be a major weighting of 2016 data under MCAS that will be greater than it would normally be because of the commitment by the state not to use the transition year last year in accountability determinations, so that there may be an even greater adverse impact to faulty MCAS data if we stay that course. So there are many education reasons to make the transition right now in preparation for an MCAS 2.0, which is going to be very much aligned to what the park looks like now. Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jennifer McChrystal. I'm the Director of Special Education, and I wanted to address some of your concerns directly because I know as this started coming up in the community, special ed teachers got very anxious because they want to make sure students are receiving the accommodations. So I've had several conversations with the state. All of the students' accommodations that they currently have listed in their IEP will carry over for this assessment. There are 2 changes. One is that MCAS was untimed. If students need untimed assessments, it's already written in the general accommodation section of their IEP. For this year, the state will allow that accommodation to carry over into the state section of the IEP. So students who need that, who receive it on a daily basis in the classroom, can access it on that assessment. And as teams re-meet throughout the year, they can then add that in. But the state will allow us to make sure students who need it have it without reconvening the team. So we're not going to be holding thousands of IEP meetings over the next 2 months. The one thing that is different is that students on MCAS are allowed to use graphic organizers. On Park, you are not allowed to use a graphic organizer. And I know, as our principals indicated, our students are really learning skills to be able to answer higher level testing questions. They are allowed to have a blank piece of paper. So for those kids who need graphic organizers, we should be teaching them how to access those skills anyway, because there's no way you're going to be writing an essay in a job and pull out your graphic organizer. You're going to write it on a piece of paper and then apply that skill. So we're just going to be taking it to the next level for these students. But all other accommodations are allowed on Park. They have them in the IEPs already, and they'll be able to access them. We've already prepared an email to explain all of this to the staff, and we intend to send a letter out to all of the parents explaining this, and then offer at the next special education PAC meeting, which is always the first Thursday of the month, that any staff or parents that have any questions can come to the PAC meeting. We will go through that in detail. We can show them how to find it on their IEPs and make sure that all of the students have what they need. So, thank you.
I wasn't necessarily going to speak on this, but I feel as though I have to. The position of the UTL is that we oppose any high-stakes test. What ended up being MCAS years ago was a way of assessing what kids knew. It wasn't a way of crucifying teachers, and that's what it's turned into. Through this last progression of ed reform under the Obama administration in the race to the top, there was an insistence that student test scores become part of a teacher's evaluation, as though the only thing impacting the results of a test on a child is the teacher. Coming from an urban district in a gateway city, there are too many other factors out there that have an impact on the child. Their home life, whether they live in a car or they live in a home, whether or not they have struggles and strife within their family, and all of those things are things that are demands on urban district teachers that make this job not only extremely difficult, but also rewarding. So our position is to oppose any high-stakes testing. But we also understand the reality of the political reality that's here. Mitchell Chester was on the board of directors for PARCC testing at the same time when he was supposed to have an unbiased opinion and asking the opinion of the public about PARCC testing. Now, he's no longer on the board, my understanding, and it was done quite quietly from my understanding. However, the fact is there's an agenda. What does PARCC testing have to do with corporate America? It's part of Pearson Publishing. It's a gold mine for Pearson Publishing. There was an agenda when he came to Lowell. That was for us to walk away a little bit from MCAS and go to PARCC. I'm going to call it the way I see it because I think it's wrong. However, I understand if you take the position to move to PARCC at this point. Because the reality is that as more districts, particularly urban districts, move to PARCC, because it's an attractive option to say they will be held harmless for a year. And we do need the time, the superintendent is correct. Think about who's left in the PARCC, in the MCAS pool, right? That pool becomes quite shallow with fewer participants and probably a greater likelihood that those who stay in MCAS may be designated as a level 4 school or a level 4 district. Now, it's kind of like The Godfather, a deal you can't refuse. And we all know what that means. And we have to balance, and I understand the superintendent. I fully understand that the superintendent is charged with making critical education decisions based on his assessment of the needs of the entire district. And I fully support that. So while I cannot and will not support high-stakes testing because of its punitive nature to kids, to districts, and to teachers, I can understand the tough decision you have to make in going to a PARCC. What I will offer, however, is that if you do make that decision at this point, we will work as collaboratively as we can with you to get the information or the input from the practitioner about their opinion. Not a bunch of outside people and experts. There's too much reliance on experts. The only experts anyone needs to listen to are the people who actually educate kids every single day. They know the kids more than anybody else does. Not people from DESE. Not people who bring in the consultants who are highly paid to persuade or to push school committees to move in a certain direction or to push policy. In my opinion, DESE has run amok, and there needs to be some clear thinking about what they're doing. I think it's a shame that when people who dedicate their lives to become educators, particularly in urban districts, are treated so shabbily. Lawrence is an aberration. The way people are being treated there, I think, is a disgrace and unnecessary, because we were able to show, particularly at the Merklin School and Morey School and other schools that have turned around, particularly our level 4 school that turned around. You treat people with respect. You tell them that you know they can achieve. You give them the tools to do it, and you back them, and they will always come through. And we've done that again and again. We feel as though I've spoken with the superintendent about how we can again work collaboratively as we did with the Merklin and the Morey and other schools, and take the schools now that are having some difficulty and turn them around. But we'll do it because we all work together. So I just wanted to officially say we stand opposed to high-stakes testing, its general nature, punitive nature to so many people who don't deserve it in districts. Understand the tough decision you have to make. Understand the political realities that we live with. I don't like any of them, and certainly we'll be talking about that further, and maybe that's something we can all stand together on some of these issues, and hopefully try to change the course of this. But I understand where you are, and I just wanted to give the opinion of the UTL and our members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have one other question. So we have some schools that may be teetering on the edge, and this would buy us some time, if you will. However, I know in the past we've had schools that have gone to level 4. We've been a level 4 district in the past, and it's my understanding that there's resources supplied by the state when that happens to help to move those schools out of the level 4 situation. So my question to you is, are we better off? I mean, image aside, are we better off if we have a school or schools that are truly level 4, letting that happen, getting the resources and moving them like we did at the Merkland and the Morey and other places? Or do you feel we're better prepared avoiding that and, going out another path?
Alan, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My answer is that I don't know that you have a guarantee that there is no written anywhere that if you do go to level 4, you will get extra funds. There is no guarantee on that. We've seen level 4s where the state has come in and supported them financially, as they did in some things. We've seen some level 4s where the schools were taken over and handed over to a consultant to run. And we've seen some that did really well under that model and some that did very poorly on that model. What I do know is the reality of today, what I need to make as a decision, which is recommending a UU decision for the greater good of the district, what we are prepared for. I can only know that by talking to our school leaders, and my school leaders, all of them have been reporting to me, they're ready. They'll take on the challenge, it will not hurt us, and I have to look at the greater good of the district, and I will not be making this recommendation to you if our school leaders had come to me and the majority of them would said, please don't do that. I would not even be talking to you about it, because I would never come to you with the recommendation that would contradict our school leaders.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, I have been on the fence about this issue. I've in the past opposed Park. I've opposed Park. I voted to support MCAS in the last school committee, and we had a motion in October, as Mr. Gignac pointed out, where we went on record as opposed to Park. But much of that was due to the online nature of the exam. The cost associated with implementing that exam, I think, and I still think, would be, very, very impossible for the city of Lowell to take on. However, in looking at this issue further, I feel as though the likelihood of us going to level 4, if that's something we can avoid and be held harmless, I think that's an opportunity we should probably seriously consider. I think that the points brought up that if we are heading toward a Park or a Park-like exam in the near future, then having a couple of years where we can be held harmless and become accustomed to that exam, that's probably a good thing. Obviously the Commissioner of Education wants us to go that way. So in building a relationship with the Commissioner of Education, maybe it's something we should consider. And finally, Mr. Superintendent, I want to support you. If you feel as though that this is our best approach and the best way to bring all of our schools up to a higher level, and I want to support that. So I am going to support your recommendation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jenner. Just as a point of information to an earlier question that you had, I believe I've read recently that 2019, that's the year when everybody has to go online with testing. Any further discussion? Mr. Hoey?
Thank you. I'm not going to be able to support you, Mr. Superintendent, and I wish I could. I was here 20 years ago when testing basically started, and I believe state, federal mandates, and testing, for one thing, has caused a lot of damage to children. I think we dumbed down America by some of those standards, and I think the federal government and the state government made some mistakes, just like local governments have. But I can't support it for that reason. I think it's just not a good idea anyway, so I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Hoy. Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This has obviously been a real difficult process, I think, for all of us. There's been a lot of information that's come at us with a real kind of drop-dead timeline, which is difficult. And a lack of an opportunity for us to kind of have this conversation prior to being under the gun to make the decision. You know, I have concerns around Park. I have concerns around, you know, as I look at this, we're not really going to be able to make any valid, I know we're being held harmless during this period, but we're also going to go through a period where we're not as able to make valid comparisons and valid understanding of what our growth is because of a changing test instrument. So over the course of, you know, 4 years, we're going to go through 3 different testing instruments. We won't be able to make a comparison really until FY18. Again, you know, a lot of the issues that have been brought up already, I don't want to, you know, beat a dead horse, as they say, but it's a real challenge. I have been on the fence as well. At this point, I do feel like supporting this move and supporting Park is the only choice I can make for moving forward. I'm, you know, again, it's not something that I do with great enthusiasm, but I do think that having the administration and the some of the other members of the leadership speak to this, I appreciate your enthusiasm and your optimism about it. So I'll be supporting it based on that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dakota?
I have a quick question for the superintendent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a plan to review the results of this year's testing with Park for the fall so that we can reassess and see how things are with that test?
Yes, we will. We should be, Mr. Mayor, we should be always presenting to you back the results. I think whether it's MCAS or Park or MCAS 2, that's my plan. And we've been already talking that to come back to the school committee to do a full presentation on the current year, the tests as we got. I think it was a practice that I always did with other districts, is to reserve one evening with the school committee to present the tests and everything. So as we are planning to do this for this year, we will certainly plan to do it for Park, as we will plan to do it for MCAS 2 when it comes.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion before we take the vote, which will be a roll call vote? Mrs. Abrams wanted to comment.
Thank you. I just feel I would be remiss if I didn't say something to this as well. MCAS has served us well. We're working up towards almost 20 years using MCAS, but that is 20 years. And within that time, 20 years, education, teaching, and learning has changed dramatically. So what we see in our classrooms today is totally different than what we saw 20 years ago. I believe and I support, and as Assistant Superintendent Durkin does, that this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to give us a chance to see what this new testing is like. I believe every day in our classrooms, that's what our teachers are doing. They're not teaching to the test, I don't mean that, but the level of rigor and accountability that is in our classrooms today, we're ready for this, and I think that we can move forward with this. I don't look at it as anything like we're, you know, running away from something. I don't think that at all. I think our teachers are, when I go through classrooms and I see what's going on, they're ready for this. That's what they're working to every day. So respectfully, I just wanted to express my opinion on this. I think it's an opportunity. We'll learn things, and then we can move forward. But this is the only year we have the opportunity. And I know it's quick, and I know things change very quickly. I understand that, and I don't like that either. But this is an opportunity, and I think that I want to thank the principals who are here this evening, Ms. McChrystal. I think we'll be okay. I don't have any, know for sure, but I think it at least gives us a chance to see that what we're doing every day in classrooms is seen at the results of these tests. Thank you. I don't know if you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we all set?
I'm all set.
I think everyone has heard enough, and I want to thank everyone for being here as well this evening, and to Jennifer McChrystal from the Special Ed Department for doing all that investigatory work when those questions were percolating. And I'm glad that we had the opportunity to investigate that, and we will assure you that if the vote is yes tonight for the park, that tomorrow our staff will have in hand what they need in order to make the best decisions for students around their IEPs and going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call. Mr. Hoey.
Thank you. Real quick, Mayor, I just want to make sure, thank you for coming, everybody. And it's not like I'm against this type of testing, but after seeing what has happened with federal and state mandates, No Child Left Behind, standardized testing, Common Core, they've made a lot of mistakes at the federal level and the state level. And I feel like the teachers right now, it's a bad way to gauge how good a school is. So I want the staff to know. I have grandchildren all throughout the system, and the school that I live near, the Pine Art School, I'm so happy with these schools, it's crazy. So I want them to know, you know, I can't gauge the job that they're doing by test. It doesn't work for me. I think they're doing a great job, so I wanted to leave that there. Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent.
I just wanted to clarify. I mean, thank you, Mr. Howie. I understand you're against testing in general, and I think you will find a lot of people supporting your opinion, even among our staff, that would say, yes, we agree with you. But I think what I just wanted to clarify and for you that when we vote, if we vote today, if you vote today for yes for park or no for park, we're still going to have to test the children. It's just a different test. So it's not like we have a chance to say, let's get rid of all the tests and we're going to rely only on the teachers, which many countries do that, by the way. But it's not that choice. It's either a test or a test. So I hope you know, I was hoping you support us, and I really do, because we have to test the children. It's a state mandate. We don't have no choice. So this is a test versus a test. So we're trying to take the test that serves the districts at large. That's what we're trying to do.
Roll call.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
No.
Mr. Hoey?
No.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
5 yeas, 2 nays, passes.
Thank you. The next order of business are, we have 4 requests for conventions and conferences. Chair would entertain a motion to bundle all 4 together into one vote.
So moved.
We have a motion to do that by Mr. Gendron, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. And a roll call will entertain a motion to approve all 4. We have a motion by Mr. Gignac to do that, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call on that vote.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Next order of business is under professional and personal. The members of the United Teachers of Lowell hereby donate 53 sick leave days to Kerry DeRosa from the Shaughnessy School. We have a motion to approve by Mr. Gignac, second by Mr. Hoey. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Roll call.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
That concludes the regular agenda. The chair would now entertain a motion to move into executive session and to adjourn from executive session at the end of that meeting. We have a motion by Ms. Doherty to move into executive session, second by Mr. Gendron. Roll call on that motion.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Thanks.
So do you